Hi, everybody. This is Bill Holton from Field Trial Central, and I'm just getting together tonight with Randy Anderson from Cross Country Kennels. I saw earlier today Randy had posted that unofficially Valiant was going to be the winner of the Prina Top Dog of the Year award, and it just kind of jogged my mind that we should get together and talk about this, and we're going to try to do this more often with lots of trainers and personalities throughout the sport, and everybody let us know kind of how you feel about this, and if you want to see more of these, we'll try to do one once a week, or we could do them twice a week. We're kind of in a strange time here, and not only in the field trial season where things are winding down. The all age side is completely wound down. The shooting dog guys are, I think, still maybe trying to get another trial or two in, but it's just that time of year anyways. And then we have the corona, so everybody is all running and hiding. So we're gonna talk about things that we love and we enjoy, and that have made this sport and this country great. So Randy, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Look forward to doing it.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, you started the season obviously up north and at your camp. Kind of, we see it in the background here from me, and you had the whole string up there, and Valiant and everybody else, and I think you had a little bit of a shortened fall season. There was kind of a weird year, and the Valiant really caught my eye earlier, in the season. Kind of just tell us a little bit how he did, and what his season looked like.
Okay. All right. Well, Bill, first of all, I've lost you as far as your visual. I don't know if that means anything or not, but I'll
Okay.
continue on. Uh, yeah, we started it out in Manitoba. I didn't go to Morlack, and he won the Manitoba Championship. And after that, we came home, went to Medicine Lodge, didn't do anything out there at all. And that was actually his first field trial. And we went to the Oklahoma Championship, and he won it, back to back, and then straight to the Southland and won that one also. So we're really on a magic ride. I lost everything.
Oh, I can hear you.
Okay, as long as you can still hear me, I can't see you or anything other than a black
Okay.
screen.
Hey, just
But
maybe your screen just went to sleep. Just give your mouse a movement.
okay, you got it. All right, we're back.
Yep.
And then after the Southland, it was try to get prepared for the Quail Championship, which we went there and won it. Placed him in the Kentucky Quail Classic, and left there. Had a little bit of break for the holidays. Went and won the Prairie with him, and then the Pelican back to back, and of course, went to the Alabama Championship. And there did win it with Webster's Jazzman, and then the national championship, which he went 3 hours in. And we'll go to Italy also, and then we finished the season by winning the Southern, which is an endurance championship also, and then placing him in the Missouri Open. He placed 10 times this year.
You're breaking up a little bit there, so just try to keep that microphone in front of you. But you said he placed 10 times in the all age circuit this year.
Yes, yeah, seven first.
Wow, that's an awesome year. How many? How many? Yeah, just take that microphone on and keep it in front of you. Guys are having a little bit hard time hearing you, but so one thing I was going to ask was, there you go, you got it. Just so what was I had a quick question there as far as that goes. So points wise, where do you think he's going to end up?
Way over 2,000.
Yeah, that's a heck of a year.
I've got it calculated and wrote down, but until it really comes out official, I really
right.
Throwing a number out there and I go, well, you were 50 points off or whatever, but
right,
it's over 2,000 points.
Yeah, that's pretty special. So Valiant, if I understand what you told me before, is that's a dog you raised from the time it was weaned, right?
Yeah, he was at Camelocker, the widow of the late, pro dog trainer Max Camelocker, and picked him out of a litter, out of Miller's Happy Jack, championship line. And matter of fact, Mac or Valiant has a full litter mate that is Tangled Sheets. One of she's pretty stout also, and being out of Happy Jack, I worked Valiant like I would a Happy Jack. Happy Jack was a little more self-employed, and it may have slowed down some of his development as far as running early on. A lot of people go, "Where's he been?" For the last few years, but he had won a championship and two runner-ups in college state prior to this year. So I mean, he was also a top 12 Derby as his Derby year. So he he's done well. He just did an unbelievable job this year.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, Tangled Sheets has been a real special dog that I know. There's been a handful of handlers have done a really good job. I've won with that dog, and if I remember right, just from hearing things in the past, that Pat really did a great job raising litters. Um, for some reason, a lot of those pups came out of there. I don't know if it was socialization or nutrition or what it was, but they came out of that whelping nest. There's been a lot of them over the years that they have, done real well. So I was interested to tell me when you told me that Pat raised that litter.
Even Valiant's grandma, Pat raised a litter that Motif is would be Valiant's grandmother. And it, and they bred it to Whippoorwill Wild again to get Whippoorwill War down. So I mean, it's a champion producing female line for generations. And Pat is still raising puppies, for folks, including us. We have her still do some stuff for us also.
Yeah, yeah. It, just keep that mic in front of you. You got great stuff to hear, and we want to make sure we can all hear it. And
All
so
right.
yeah, that's perfect, awesome. Um, the other, so you finished out the season at the Missouri with Valiant. You had a pretty good successful year with a number of other dogs. What other dogs did we make to the winner's circle this year?
Well, a first year dog, Miller's Justifiable, won a runner up championship with him and placed him a few times. Touches Fire Away, won an open all age stake as a first year dog. And, uh, one of our veterans that I've been, very fond of throughout his career is Lester's Jazzman, winning Alabama championship. And so, I mean, we placed every derby that we were running this year. And, I can't complain. We've had a blessed season.
Absolutely. Yeah, you had some help, new scout this year, and looked like he was doing a great job.
Yeah, Stegan had worked with another trainer last year as more of an assistant that had done really any scouting, but he was very good with a horse and had been outdoors and of course being with the other person last year, he learned a lot from that setting, and he jumped right in. I mean, we had a little bit of growing pains at that first field trial. I'll go back to it. I think we'd have had that field trial won if I'd have known he'd had the dog. But it was just a little lack of communication and really knowing what to do. But uh, he's an athlete. In the past, he knew how to take coaching and an unbelievable job. Yeah, Stegan did. He jumped in there. I mean, not just the scouting part. He was a good assistant with the dogs and great with the horses.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Stegan scouted for you at the national also.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
boy, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a heck of a job.
Yeah, for a person to jump right in there and take that role on at that setting was awesome. And I didn't want to put that pressure on him. I talked to him about it, and he said that he wanted to do it. And so I mean, we went with the clothes we were wearing, and so the rest is history.
Yeah, yeah,
And
that's great.
back to the national championship. I mean that the weather we ran Valiant in was awful. We started. The temperature dropped the whole time of that 3 hours, and the wind went from a mild breeze to 30 mile per hour. And when I judged a black belt years ago at Bud Moore's plantation in Alabama, I visited for hours one afternoon with Ed McFerrier, and two things that I remember in our long conversation was you don't know what you have in a dog until you have them broke, and the other is don't waste a 3 hour performance. You only have so many of them. And the whole time I was going in that weather, I kept hearing Ed Mac's voice telling me that, but uh, I was very, very proud of that dog. And a lot of people has tried to give us support and whatever, but I have all the confidence in the world in them three judges that they made the right decision. I have no problem with that. And
Yeah, well, I
but
know.
I was sure proud of the dog.
Yeah, when you see the pictures that were taken, from that brace, and knowing that you went the whole 3 hours, you just thought, man, he had to have been really, getting something done, and you had to be, really, really pleased with what he did, and just that's just pure toughness. Not only in the dog, but in the handler and the scout and everybody else. So, uh, you'll be back there.
Yeah, yeah. I tell you, going back to what we kind of started this live feed on is about Valiant. His early development. I had a guy living at my kennel by the name of Jim Turner, who was a friend of mine that was walking a large group of puppies, and Jim would take off every morning with 10. He was working an evening shift, and he'd walk all 10 of them puppies. And one day he said, "You have got to see this dog." He said he's something special about him, and we took out, and he was running a little further than the other ones, and had class that was unbelievable. And he said, "Watch this." And we turned around and went in an opposite direction, and within minutes, the dog was back to the front. And that was born in him. I mean, he has always been a natural front running dog. And then that year as a puppy up north, we had a gentleman that had a spinal cord injury by the name of Daniel Jones. And Daniel was up at our camp, and he took a liking to old Mac, and Daniel would bench him hours on hours. I have pictures of him where he's just got him up on the bench and posing him up, and I really feel like that composure around his bird work has come from Daniel Jones. And Hoyle Eaton told me years ago, you got to have that championship composure around their bird work, and that dog definitely has it. And then early part of that early development, there was a lot of assistants that was with me during that time. Willie Tucker played a big part in him, and Jeremy Golick was a huge part of him being broken. And and I got the owner. I mean, the dog had gone through a dry spell there, and I kept telling the owner that it will get better. And I mean, I appreciate him and believing in that dog and us. And he's been questioned and was even told a few times, I believe you ought to, cut bait. And thank God he didn't.
Right. Yeah,
We,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah, he's had uh, a lifetime career just since September.
Yeah.
And
So,
I tell you, I mean, Adams County. I mean, there's a special reward when you raise one of them. I mean, I'm not the breeder of him, but we've had him his whole life, and I like when. I mean, every dog that we get in our string, I'm fond to him. I mean, Adams County, we won this award with it. I think it was in 13 and 14. It might have been 14 and 15. But anyway, that's not important. But those dogs that win that, I mean, they get hot like that, and it all just kind of comes together. I never really paid that much attention to it until the end. I'm nutty enough to worry about them points until we pretty well know we got it in the basket.
yeah, yeah, no, that's a good way to do it. The points will come as the wins fall. So, um, I see Joe Hopkins on here. He says to be sure to talk about the Quail Invitational.
Well, uh, that was another unbelievable performance. I mean, he did all 3 days. His first 2 days were great, and then he come off with that third day of getting it done. And the endurance part of it, uh, going back to, I'll go back to the dog. Mac was never a dog that I lost you for a minute a year back, but he was a dog that I never really challenged as far as long heating, keeping him on the ground for a long time. And a lot of these dogs I do. And so up until that point, I really never really challenged him to know what he would do. And then we started working him to get ready for Quail Invitational, and he showed that he had the guts to do it. And like I said earlier about working a dog, they only have so many 3 hours in them. I didn't want to waste one. And then as I got closer to the nationals, we didn't waste one there either. But uh, his preparation to it was great. And I mean, people ask me what we do nutrition wise. I mean, we don't do anything other than the pro plan, Purina pro plan. There's no supplements. There's not a lot of different changing. We may do some stuff doing weight a little different, but it was a great invitational. It was the second time I won it. Actually, the third time I won it. I won runner up in it also. The first time was in 1981. I mean, 2001 with Future Stock, and then again with Adams County, which we won the Preen Awards with, and then this year, and then we won runner up with his father. Uh, the sire of Valiant, which was Miller Happy Jack.
Right, right. Yeah, Happy Jack was pretty special dog in your string for you for a long time, right? Lots of years with Happy Jack.
Unbelievable. I think people may know this more than I do, but I think I was still winning championships with him in Canada when he was close to his 10th birthday, if not past his 10th birthday.
Yeah.
And I hope I get the same out of, those dogs that are Miller bred. I mean, they have a lot of longevity to them. And I mean, even Happy Jack today is still on Knight's Hill Plantation. Scott Griffin and them are still hunting him. And
Oh,
I seen a picture of him with Dunn's Tried and True that Scott had sent me, and he still looks good. I mean, that dog is special to me. I mean, Gary Lester will tell you that his gray hair come from Happy Jack, but he uh, he was a challenge. He was very, very self-employed, but that's the reason why he's a good sire. Those dogs like that, are the best sires. And he was an endurance dog, and I think some of these endurance stakes are shrinking. The Southern used to be with a larger callback in time and cut to an hour and a half, and our breeding dogs come from those endurance stakes. I think they ought to be more of them. Some of them need to come back.
yeah, I can agree with you there. I suppose part of the issue is it's our obviously it's not a surprise that our sport's not growing as fast as we like, and it's tough to do it at those 3 hour stakes or even 2 hour stakes. Where you don't the ground isn't around as maybe quite as plentiful as it used to be, and but I really that's what most of us are really looking for and are really admire in the all age dogs, and that's one of the reasons why the national is big. That's the same with the southern. Or, there's a lot of those that you really or the free for all. I guess would be one that you'd like to see. With the
Back in a 3 hour, absolutely.
yep.
One thing that hurt the endurance stakes is when the national championship took the one time qualifiers. They used to be one time qualifiers. I think if there was ever a time for that to come back, would be now. Number one, it brings back the endurance stakes, and those dogs qualify. And with some of the decline in the field trials, they may need the one time qualifiers. And by winning an endurance stake, they should be awarded for that. Some of the grounds have shrunk too. That's one of the things that I do like. The concept of the free for all. I mean, of the invitational. The gentleman was asking the question. I mean, we go the top 12 go at it. Compete against each other, and we change brace mates and we change times. We're actually doing that for three. We're doing it for 2 days, and if we're fortunate enough to get called back, we're coming back for that callback, and it's you've got to be prepared. I mean, the national championship, you got to be prepared and a lot of luck. The day you're running, just like ours. I mean, we're running in a rainstorm, and the temperature's falling, and I'm not complaining. But we're on a pretty level playing field at the Invitational, and it is the top 12 going at it.
Right.
one of my favorite venues. And those
Yeah.
folks do a
That's,
wonderful job putting that event on. Also, it's a great field trial.
yeah. A couple of years ago, I was lucky enough to judge with John Russell, and we spent a lot of time in the evenings, and it was great. I've never been to the Invitational, the Quail Invitational, so it was good to hear a lot of the history from John, and some really interesting stories. I mean, just the number of great dogs that have gone through there.
Absolutely. And I'll plug his book. John wrote a book about the Invitational and his time and the history of, and it's one to purchase. I mean, it's a great book, and as a person that follows our sport, or a hunter or a bird dog enthusiast, needs to get John Russell's book.
Yeah,
There's so much
absolutely.
history in there.
I'll find a link to it, and I'll post it in the comments in this feed. So just so everybody knows, this live feed will be here on Facebook for forever, for people to go back and watch later. It also will be over on YouTube, on the Field Trial Central YouTube site. So feel free to go over there and like it and share it, and get the word out there. We'd like to be able to do this a lot more, and I think that guys like Randy are interested in coming on and sharing their seasons with us. Which of course it's a lot easier when you have the dog of the year, and it feels it's but this is a sport that there's a lot of ups and downs, and these guys travel up and down the road, and it's a tough life that they've chosen, and they love it. But it's a lot of work. They're out there in the all kinds of weather. I mean, you talked about, it was nasty the day you ran in the national, and then guys are back to work again today. Working puppies and trying to get derbies ready, and getting everybody kind of getting horses ready and get stuff to before you head up north. And now Oklahoma, you're in the 80s. That's you're the conditions you work in, and but there's a lot of people that'll that follow this sport, and they like to see what happens. And so I think that make sure you reach out to me, or make comments, and let us know that you like this and that you'd like to see more of these. But so Randy, let's go back a little bit. I know you started as obviously as a field trailer, like we all did, as an amateur. You more than likely had a mentor or two, and I think that's one of those things that gets missed out. We have a lot of people that want to get started in the sport, but the ones that stick around and the ones that stay, and some of them that end up as pros, it seems to me every single one of them, and I'll say the same for myself, had a mentor or multiple mentors. Kind of tell us how you got started in the sport, and as an amateur, and then moved into being a professional.
Okay. All right. Well, let me go back just a little bit. Uh, uh, you know, uh, there were some dogs when I was trying to list a while ago off of memory, and I did jot me a few notes down. There's a couple of dogs that I left out when you asked me earlier about dogs that we placed. Terry's Third Chance placed in the Hobart Ames, and then also Touch of Spaceman won the Kentucky Quail Classic, that runs with the Invitational. And before I go much further, I mean, I want to thank all my owners, not owners with any of us, this sport. The way, you and I have done interviews before, and, the way the tradition of our sport, it would not happen without these owners. And, going north, and I dwell on it. And, we're losing a lot of that tradition every year. And, and that kind of goes with some of my mentors. I started, it was introduced to field trials uh, by the late Ronnie Smith, and which is Delmer Smith's brother and father to the Ronnie Smith that a lot of people see at these seminars. And he introduced me to field trials, and it wasn't long Ronnie had passed away with cancer. And so I grabbed up when Andy Doherty was a lot of help, and I got involved in field trials through John Criswell, and at the all age level. And I was a firefighter and a retired firefighter, and I started developing field trial dogs. And probably the person who guided me more into the sport was Robin Gates, and that loss has hit a bunch of us. And it'll be the first time in most of our lives that there hadn't been a Gates involved in a major circuit field trial. and that's a huge void. But every year I would have an Oklahoma Dog of the Year, a puppy that had won either Oklahoma All Age Puppy or All Age Derby of the Year. I never really kept any of them any further than that. And Robin was always there to purchase that dog. And I wouldn't be here today if I mean, it paid for my field trial and then developing those dogs. And the only dog that I kept through that I'd won a runner-up amateur championship on was Ironclad, and he purchased him also. But the last one that Robin got that I even had to compete against after I turned pro was Point Blank, who was a rebel bred. And I stood Mortlack, who was Barshu Barut's sire. I stood him in my early days as an amateur with John Criswell and his owner, Perry Michaels, who the field trial grounds are named after in Boonville. He was a Arkansas Fish and Game commissioner and field trial early in his life, but Perry passed away also the last couple of years. But it actually, when I got ready to go pro, Robin was the first person I called, and we visited a little bit about the dog business. And then when I retired from the fire department, the rest is pretty much history. It's flown fast. Hell, I've almost been a dog trainer as long as I was a firefighter. I mean, I went pro in 2001 when I retired, and what is it, 2020 now? So.
It is. Yep. That goes by fast, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I love it. I mean, as long as health will hold up, I plan on doing it as long as I can.
Yeah. So one of the dogs that I'd like to hear you talk about a little bit. I know from your past, one that I saw, a bit, and I saw, obviously we read about in the field a lot, but that was the Prairieland Pride dog. Tell me a little bit about that dog.
He was the hardest working bird dog I've ever worked. That worked for me and to find a game bird. And he wasn't as pretty as a lot of them, but he was a workhorse, and that's a quote from Farrell Miller. And he was exactly right. I mean,
keep that microphone up close, please.
I think we won 7 championships with him and 7 runner-ups. If he would have been prettier, he'd have been a 14-time champion. Those 7 because he was either a little low on the front end or his tail wasn't quite as high as we might have wanted it. And but he worked for me. Totally opposite of a Miller's Happy Jack. We had to work for Miller's Happy Jack. Old Ted, old Prairieland Pride worked for me. And this dog here, Valiant, is the same way. I've got a lot in our string, and I think an all-age dog needs to be a little self-employed. So and then as they get older, including Prairieland Pride, he got a little more self-employed. Uh, he qualified for the Nationals every year after his Derby year, and that year Snow Watch, there was a lot of good derbies. That year, Snow Watch was a derby. I could go on with a list, but I'll use him an example because I won the Continental Derby Championship. He won and Snow Watch won the National Derby Championship. And then we went to All American. I won the All American, and Gary won runner up in the All American, and then in the Invitational, it swapped again. Gary won the Invitational, and I was runner up. But that year, if there'd have been a point system, which Linda Hunt kept, she said I had higher points than Snow Watch, and I'm throwing that out there. And that's exactly what Linda told me at that time. There wasn't a top Derby of the year, but he he was an extraordinary bird dog, and his production record, he never was bred a lot, and I think a lot of it was because he just wasn't, breathtaking around his game. But boy, he could find them. He was
Yeah.
a well bird dog, and I won everywhere I run a bird dog with him. I mean, I think that's important. He won at Mortlack, he won at Stoughton, he won at Manitoba, and then he won at South also, including the Continental Derby Championship.
Yeah, that a lot of that, when they can go out and find them, that lends you to be able to win a lot of different places, and on multiple game species, in this case, between going from the chickens up north and quail in the mid south, and then all the way out in the southeast. So, hey, we got a great question here from Joe Hopkins. Thanks, Joe. Any repeat breedings or siblings on the string from that produced House's Ring of Fire, Touch of Sandy that produced? So tell me, is that something you know anything about there, Randy?
Well, I do know that those are all, from the Touch of Space Man. And as far as the repeat, I'm not sure. Hey, if there is, I want in line. No Spaceman is a tough dog, and all those other dogs Gallatin Fire was right behind, or no, Malcolm Story was right behind us in these points this year. But Gallatin Fire's won the Prino Award, I think the Derby Award. But yeah, they would have to contact Keith Wright,
Yeah.
and they went
Well,
through
yeah,
Ike Todd on that.
that's great to get this out there. Some of those guys, Ike and Keith, they may see this and and come back and give us some comments on that in the future. So,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
go ahead.
their program. I mean, the Ike Todd and the Keith Wright breeding programs keeping a lot of dog trainers into good dogs, including myself. I mean, if you look down some of these running orders and look at our list, it has a lot of touch dogs throughout the country, not just my string, but Ike has done a tremendous job of his development of these young dogs. I want them to keep on coming. I actually don't want to start with any more of these 8-week olds.
Right. Yeah. No, Ike does a great job, and he's there's no doubt, there's those touches dogs are in every running order that you see, and they seem to be consistently winning year after year. So a lot of that has to do with the breeding and and maybe even more so on Ike getting them started right and doing a really good job with them. He's somewhat of a a genius when it comes to getting those derbies going. So
Oh,
we hope he keeps going.
yeah, some of that stuff. I mean, that's one thing that Ike has proved is that you can do that. I mean, anything that you read from years ago, or if you talk to an old dog trainer, I even seen it happen in field trials when I first got started. Is uh, pro dog trainers, or they and judges especially did not want to see derbies with any pressure on them. And I remember Bud Epperson, who developed, was a big part of national champion cross matches development and won a lot of field trials. And I mean, they're in the history books as far as field trials. I watched Bud Doherty Bud Epperson not use some broke derbies at a national bird hunter stake. And when asked, he said, "You took all the potential away from those dogs." And I remember John Little, who was a well thought out judge from the Carolinas, got to the All American one year, and he told his boys, "If you think you got a broke derby, don't think you're winning it. I want to see these dogs jumping at them, not away from them." And derby stakes back then might have been a lot funner, a lot more fun, because it was more animated. Where now, we're asking a lot of these young dogs, and I don't know if that's good or bad. I mean, it's a topic, but we don't push ours near that hard in our development. Number one, time factor, and we've got to make them. We don't have we're being paid to develop these dogs. We're not going through where we got 15 or 20 of them. We're taking the best one of the bunch. So
Right.
there is a little bit of difference, on that part of the program, but they're doing a terrific job. I mean, I want to be in that line to get more.
So you mentioned the owners before, and I know you've got a handful of owners that have been with you for a long period of time, and um, anybody that's kind of been there from the beginning, and if I know Jay's been around a long time, and some of these guys, we see them in the field, we get their name every once in a while, and if the rest of us riding in a trial, we might get to see them every once in a while. Give some of those guys a little bit of throw a couple of those guys out there, and I don't want to leave anybody out. I don't want to put you in a spot, but I know there's some of those guys that have been around a long time and have really been important to you, being able to go down the road with their dogs.
Oh yeah, I tell you, I got Don Strobel from Pennsylvania has been with me from day one. I think if I was getting ready to go off the Grand Canyon, he'd go with me, and he uh, he has traveled with me, and he's like a family member. Most of my owners, it is like a family, and Rick Peterson and Scott Griffin. When I've asked some of them to read dog, they've jumped. Griffith is a new Greg Adams and his wife Carmen, a large list of these people, and of course Jay, and I got Range Jordan in Georgia that has been very very supportive, and it all these owners mean so much to our sport, not just to our program. I mean, I make a living with them, but without them, there wouldn't be an Oklahoma championship or some of these other field trials. And, right now we're about a horse wreck away from some of these trials not happening. So we need them more now than ever. Even, I mean, our country's in a crisis and we need to pray for our nation. Yeah, I mean, this bird dog deal is very important for us to continue on and our tradition and life goes on. But it, the situation is with our sport, we've got to generate some interest and things that you're doing right here can help bring maybe somebody into our sport and through our publications and interest. But it, we're kind of stuck out there by ourselves and trying to self promote. But yeah, our owners.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Thanks for that. So now, you'll spend the next time here, I assume getting some puppies started and probably, rounding up the derbies and getting ready to head north. And I assume you're going back to the same grounds you've been at here for the last few years and coming back to North Dakota.
Absolutely. Yeah, plans are, of course, already being made. We just got finished on Monday night, and we've got some puppies in, and kind of. Of course, it's a talent search time too. To try to find some talent in these dogs, and
Keep that microphone up, Randy.
I said even if we got to go purchase, some talent, I've got to get out there and go to hunting it down.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. No, that's one thing that I think, and this isn't a new thing. It's been a lot of years, but um, people don't realize that part of that job of being a dog trainer and a professional on the circuit, whether it's the shooting dog circuit, the outlet circuit, is kind of like a baseball manager or a you know trying to gather up all the best talent, not only developing talent, but sometimes you got to go out there and find it and find someone to help you, sponsor that dog and go down the road and then try to get the very best out of that dog. And that's for some people part of the fun. And I think that seeing how they develop over a long period of time is really fun to watch.
Yeah, there's not a lot of downtime. It's kind of one of them deals. If you snooze, you lose, and so we try to stay on top of it and try to really kind of enjoy it. It's the only time I get to spend with some of my family members, and you take this time and try to do a little of that and keeping things healthy. Dogs get out of shape, so it continues. A little bit of a conditioning between now and July also. And this is when we really start. We do a lot of blood work right now on these dogs. We'll bring them in here. We'll have a vet come in the house, run the blood panels, and checking for tick-borne diseases. We've changed a lot in the way we tackle some of these precautions, and I'm anxious to see if it worked. I mean, the tick-borne deal has gotten out of hand, and especially across the Mississippi River, and there's so many resistance now to the heartworms, and we've changed that up. And I won't do a plug on a commercial on different products, but we have definitely done some stuff to the dogs internally and even on site, different type of precautions for parasites. So it as the vets come in house, we are going to we'll know just exactly where to address these issues when we get our blood work back, and that all happens in April.
All right, super. And you mentioned before, and I think it probably goes without, we probably mention again, but you feed Pro Plan.
Absolutely, yep. And I was even asked today, about different probiotics, what kind of supplements, or what do we add, or there's nothing. I mean, it's Pro Plan. I mean, we adjust. every dog gets a little different amount. Or if we're getting ready for an endurance stake or something, we might add a little more weight, but every bit of it's pro plan. We don't add a thing. And, a lot of people do that. And those diets are balanced. And when you go to adding different things, that diet becomes unbalanced. So, I might tell people to really use caution when you go to adding a lot, because those diets are formulated to be balanced, and you go to add different fats, omega-3s, or throwing this in there and throwing that in, it becomes an unbalanced diet.
Super. Yep. No, that's good information. I know. I know how important that Pro Plan has been to not only you and your string, but most of these pro strings out there, and it may not be all of them, but it's definitely a high percentage of them. And they're so important to the field trials themselves. We don't have enough sponsors, and so we have to be really, really thankful for everyone we have. And I think that it's always good to mention that Purina Pro Plan does a great job for field trials.
Absolutely, yeah. Their commitment to the sporting dog world, not just ours, is been unmatched. And I think they need to be supported for what they've done to for the sporting dog world, whether you're a hunter or a field trialer. I mean, they've been there for us. And uh, our world's changed, when it comes to hunting and stuff. But they have maintained their focus on the sporting dog.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to start wrapping up here, but is there anything else that you'd like to share? With the people that are watching. I mean, you've got an audience out here of some people watching live, and a bunch that are going to come on and watch later. And anything else you'd like? Any final words you'd like to give?
Well, just I mean, our country's in a mess, and of course, pray for our nation. I mean, none of us has ever seen anything like this before, and I want to thank our owners and other owners that are involved in other programs for supporting this, our sport. And we need to try to do everything we can to keep our sport alive, and our tradition. I mean, that's what we do about going up north, and it's very important. And you think about it, if it wasn't important, people that had to travel up there from Georgia, uh, 20s and 30s and 40s, is a little different than we travel, a lot different than what we travel today. And if it wasn't important, they wouldn't have made those trips. And it's still important. And really, that's about it. I mean, if there's any questions, or anybody wants any type of feedback off of this, and if I don't answer, a lot of people don't realize our office is on a horse and a saddle. So maybe we're not, readily available for a phone call. But if they leave me a message or text or something, I'll be more than glad to get back with them.
Absolutely. Well, hey, thanks a lot for coming on, and I will just kind of throw this out there one more time. If you guys are watching here on Facebook, give it a like and let us know what you think. And if you'd like to see more of these, or if you're watching on YouTube, click the like button and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and then you'll be notified when we're going to go live again. And we appreciate the people that are on there now. All I would say is, I can't say any better than Randy has. Pray for our nation, and wash your hands, and stay safe. Feel free to get out in the country and practice some social distancing behind a dog, whether it's a puppy or an old dog. I know I was out yesterday, and pastures are starting to kind of clear up of snow up here, and was able to go out and find a few chickens. And so they're out there, and we're excited for another field trial season to get started here as the summer comes along. And that's about all I have. So thanks for coming. Everybody have a great night, and thanks for joining us.